Hello and welcome to Tuesday Live. Today we shall focus on value chain and product standardization and how it can impact on Nigeria's economic recovery and growth plan under the new normal occasioned by COVID-19 and global recession. My name is Omini Udan. It is often said that value chain allows businesses to examine their activities and find competitive opportunities around the growing space of global markets and transactions. This common system has stimulated countries of the world, including Nigeria, to produce goods and services with comparative advantage and standardize finished commodities for value addition. Now, the Nigeria business climate is forecasting a brighter prospect amidst daunting economic challenges through multilateral cooperation and global partnership with world trade bodies. Recent emergence of Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as Director General of the World Trade Organization analysts say put Nigeria on a vantage position to leverage on available windows to fast-track foreign exchange increased capacity in the production of food and cash crops is now compelling key players to return to the glorious days food pyramid in the northern region was available, with cocoa, rubber and palm oil in the south as major drivers for diversification. Other natural resources provide additional opportunities to value chain and global market standards to the country, as concerns are high for Nigeria to play a critical role on the vast potentials and industrialization. Exchange business ideas and technology is a new template before the management of the World Trade Organization, and Nigeria is concerned on improving its business network to explore full benefits in the coming years. Tonight, we have a team of economic experts and analysts to do justice to the burning issues. But first, let's take this background report by Leah Katun Babatunde.
Of the total volume of trade around the globe, Nigeria accounts for only 0.33%. While major players continue to advance, Africa is confronted by the challenge of raw materials exports with little or no value added.
How do we add more value to our products in this country? Shea butter and sesame seed, which is very much needed and sought after for cosmetics. We are one of the largest producers, but for a long time we could not sell in markets abroad because the quality was not up to standard.
To compete favorably, Nigeria will have to meet up with globally accepted quality and standards for her products and services, a movement already being supported by the United Nations Industrialization Development Organization UNIDO through the Quality Infrastructure Program. The National Quality Infrastructure Project for Nigeria (NQRP) supports the development of mission standards and quality control bodies in Nigeria, with the overall objective of improving the competitiveness of Nigerian goods and services in the domestic, regional, and global markets. With Nigeria's recent exit from recession, the federal government announced the largest infrastructure spending drive on record, pumping $2.63 billion into the economy aimed at upgrading the country's roads, railways, and power grids. The Buhari administration has also invested heavily in broadband to support its broader modernization and diversification strategy. In promoting an export-led development agenda for Nigeria, the Nigeria Export Promotion Council has come up with the Zero Oil Plan.
We have also formed clusters for some of our products with high participation of women down the entire value chain, such as hibiscus, Texas, apparel, sesame seed, cotton, moringa, and shea, based on a better understanding of the requirements to ensure targeted support.
The National Action Committee on African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement says it plans to achieve economically viable communities in Nigeria by growing its intra-Africa export trade volume to $50 billion by the year 2035.
We are also charged to facilitate improvements in trade-related infrastructure, especially power, road, and port infrastructure. as well as improved trade environment, including trade facilitation and ease of doing business, among others.
Nigeria has already received assurances from the Director General of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who recently visited the country, that the WTO will give Nigeria the necessary technical support to boost her trade fortunes in the trade environment. Leah Katumbaba today, NTA News.
Value chain and product standardization is the focus of the program tonight. It's Tuesday Live. At some point, our phone lines will be displayed on the screen, and if you are true to you, go straight to the point and make your input. In doing this, please turn down the volume of your television set and don't break my rule. Also tonight, you can be part of the conversation through our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA. Also, in the course of the program, we'll be taking reports across the country, all to sustain the conversation tonight, which is once again on value chain and product standardization. My guests have a team of them via Zoom and also within the studio, beginning with Teso Omgodwem, is the Director of Product Certification of the Standards Organization of Nigeria. Welcome to Tuesday Live.
Thank you.
Also tonight, we have joining us Celestine Okanya. Celestine Okanya is the Director General, Nigerian National Accreditation Service, NINAS. Good to see you on the program tonight.
For having me.
Also tonight, we have Issa Aremu. Issa Aremu is Vice President of Industrial Global Union with over 50 million members for Africa, Europe, America, and the Caribbean and Asia Pacific. Immediate past General Secretary, National Union of Textile, Garment, and Tailoring Workers of Nigeria. Member, National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS Kuru Jos. Welcome to Tuesday Live.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers, and I wish you a happy conversation.
And we are going to have about 2 guests via Zoom. As soon as their signals are up, we'll join them as appropriate. Let's begin with the opening. Let's begin with you, Teso. Can we have an appraisal in terms of Nigeria's value chain and product standardization for the global market as it is now?
Thank you. Nigeria, as of now, I can rate ourselves in an honest perspective as being an average in terms of the quality infrastructure. But though, despite saying that, recently the federal government of Nigeria took a bold step by ensuring that the quality infrastructure policy that has been a draft for quite a long time was approved by the Federal Executive Council. This is to position our quality infrastructure ready for evaluation of the value chain and testing the product to ensure that they are effective for both local use and export, which has been the major problem we had with our products.
Okay, let me quickly go to Issa Aremu. Given what Teso has just said, let me just say, when we discuss about value chain in Nigeria, what are we actually looking at?
Well, thank you so much, the moderator. I think from the background tape that you played, it is self-explained what value chain should be, and I think I listened very well to Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, our own first female and first African Director General of the World Trade Organization, when she just came calling. And I think I tried to follow her movement. At the presidency, first, then the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment. She also had an engagement with the Central Bank of Nigeria. And in all these engagements, she made a point, which was also captured in your tape, that it's time for us to add value to our abundant raw materials. I think she gave the example of shea butter, in which from Benin seeds we could do a lot of value addition. So when we talk about value addition, I think the point is that Our country is highly blessed with abundant raw materials. Cassava, we have cotton, we have granite, we have cocoa, of course, the main thing, crude oil. The point is that rather than exporting crude raw materials, it's time for us to add value, to turn them to products. I mean, if you take cassava, for instance, we are the largest producer of cassava in the world, about 46 metric ton, per annum. But what do we do with this cassava? We rather export them raw. Some of them are not well properly processed, but yet there are a lot of products that we can get from cassava. I mean, you can have starch, you can have ethanol, you can have glucose, you can have sweeteners, and these are all products that are necessary for as raw materials for industrial production. I mean, very well, starch is very critical in food and beverages for producing biscuits, a number of products, but for now, we are not maximizing this. And I think she brought that message home, and I think we need to listen. For me, it was a tough love for Dr. Ngozi to make this point, because it's our own talking to us. And I think she also gave the statistics that when you look at the global world trade, Nigeria is just 0.33%, less than even 1%. I mean, possibly she will be the first Director General of WTO who's coming from a non-trading country, which means, as President Muhammad Buhari said, she actually earned it, because if it is based on the numbers compared to South Korea, I mean, which has close to almost about 56% of share of world trade, she couldn't have been competing for that. But because of her competence and capacity, of course, she also said, and I remember that we just have 19% of African trade statistics. So, but she also raised a point, these are opportunities, for us to now add value. And on the last note, maybe another thing we need to do is to be a bit historical. There was once in Nigeria in which we actually were adding value. I mean, take petroleum sector, for instance. It is a country that used to have 4 functional refineries. In fact, by 1980, Nigeria was said to have 2 refineries strictly for export. We're already meeting domestic market and we're exporting to West African sub-region. But today is a sad commentary. That's oil producing country. We have no functioning refinery. That's why I'm excited about the new attempt to revive the Port Harcourt refinery, by the federal government. We can discuss the details of that. But talking about value addition, I think it's about beneficiation. It's about moving from growth to development. It's about adding value to abundant resources to create jobs. President Buhari is talking of creating 100 million jobs in 10 years' time. The key to it is through beneficiation. And we have seen some effort now being done by CBN on rice production, on cotton, textile, and garment. I think we can discuss that extensively. So essentially, this is the point I want to raise, that we need to adopt development model in which you add value to raw materials rather than exporting crude raw materials without beneficiation. That's the way to create jobs and grow the nation.
Thank you so much for your opening thoughts. Quickly, let's go to Celestine Okanya. Celestine, if you look at the hub, Nigeria may have created a value chain, but are we really in the global value chain? If we're not in the global value chain, it is argued that today, the global value chain is more or less globalization. If you don't belong to this, it becomes a problem. But quickly, before we go to specifics, on account of this and to ensure standardization, the President approved the establishment of the Nigerian National Accreditation Service. Of what use is this agency within the value chain and standardization in Nigeria?
Thank you, Omini. I think this is a very important question that every Nigerian should be asking concerning NINAS, or Nigerian National Accreditation System. As you know, quality infrastructure, when we say quality infrastructure, we are referring to the key pillars that drive quality systems of a country. You have the standardization, and I'm happy that my colleague from the SON, the Director of Products, is here on the same program. So the first pillar of quality infrastructure is standards. Standardization, in our own case, SON, they set all the standards and adopt foreign standards if we have to set the tone for what kind of quality products and services we should deliver to our economy or to our trading partners. That's the first pillar. And then you also need metrology, which deals with measurement and weights of every product or services that you deliver in your economy. Again, we have that pillar within the purview of the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment and the Standard Organization of Nigeria. So that metrology with the standards sets the tone for what our quality requirements are for every product, every service. And how do we know when people comply with the standards set by SON or the metrological traceability required by the Waste and Measure Department or other parts of metrology that is domiciled in Standards Organization of Nigeria? The only way to know that is through conformity assessment. So manufacturers, producers are required to comply to the standards set by the Standard Organization of Nigeria. And when we measure their compliance, we say we are measuring conformity assessment. Now, where accreditation comes in all this is that we are responsible for ensuring that everyone whose services is measuring conformity assessment. And when I say conformity assessment, I mean those who operate laboratories, whether testing laboratories or medical laboratories or calibration laboratories, or those agencies or bodies that provide certification or inspection services to our economy. Our role is to provide accreditation service to them. And what does the accreditation service say or mean? We want to attest that they are complying with the requirements of the international standard for their procedures or their processes. Why this is important is because our trading partners, whether local or international, would want to know that the conformity assessment done has followed the standards set, and the way and manner the results that are generated can be trusted. So our value is to add that piece of witnessing or providing confidence and trust in our trade. What that translates to means that if our product leaves the shore of our country to another nation, at the destination country, our goods will not be subjected to another retesting, because our accreditation system provides that confidence that our trading partners need, so that every product that has already gone through an accredited conformity assessment in Nigeria should not be retested. And other value that you find in accreditation playing on this value chain is that when the system is perfectly running, we will no longer have our products being rejected at other country destinations or ports outside our country. Basically because before such goods leave the country, we would have been sure that through the conformity assessment procedures they've been through and through the accreditation process that guarantees the compliance and conformity of these systems, there will not be any need, any chance to export substandard or non-compliant goods outside the country. And me and you know how much Nigeria has lost for our products that are rejected outside the shores of this country. So our role is very, very extensive, involves almost every aspect of our economy, every aspect of our operation as a nation. So that's what it is in a summary. I think there are more to say, but let me stop here so far. We can address further areas later.
Thank you so much. Before I come back to Teso, let me stay on Issa Aremo. Issa, listening to Teso and Celestine Okanya clearly, they have been able to give us a clearer picture regarding standards and standardization. But let's look at the value chain proper. If globally today you don't think about value addition, where will you be within the value chain? For instance, West Africa is endowed, Nigeria is endowed, but we are primary producers. If we don't tinker towards value addition, where will we be within the value chain?
Well, I think it's self-explained. I mean, I listened to my two colleagues very well, and I think there's no doubt that we cannot compete if we don't have quality control. We really don't have quality products, but also significantly we must have the quantity, the products. So it's important, and I think I'm excited about the work being done by the Standard Organization and the relevant agencies on quality and standardization so that our products can be acceptable in the global market. And do also forget that this also is a significant period because the African Continental Trade Agreement has become a reality. And Nigeria has signed on. You know, there's no way we can benefit from this if we don't have product to sell. But as you said, you can only standardize products that are valuable. And the statistics are there that so far we are only processing less than 20% of our agricultural products. 70%, you know, they are completely sold out without any form of processing. You know, whether you take cassava, I've given an example, you also take the case of cotton, which significantly we are making some progress now. So what I'm saying here is that I think it's an entire value chain, which must start first with production. We must produce first products that you can even talk of quality control for those products. And the way to go is beneficiation, is to add value. And I'm happy some of the few steps being taken now. If you take the anchor borrower with respect to rice production, I mean, we have moved from dependency on import of rice now to production. But that's not even the reading. The news is that we are now processing. A good number of, mills, rice milling mills have come on board. Close to almost about, 99 now, from ground zero. The same thing with cotton production. I mean, you just introduced me. I used to be the immediate past secretary of the textile union, and we've been engaging on the cotton and textile garment policy, CTG. I think one of the significant intervention of CBN is to, through direct support for farmers, through loans, cheaper loans, and provision of seedlings, is that we have now moved from massive cotton shortage to cotton surplus, relatively speaking. But to get the cotton, we must be able to gin the cotton. We must be able to turn to make it available for the spinning mills, for the weaving, of course, for production of fabrics. That's the entire value chains, and a lot of jobs can be created along this line. So it is after you've now produced the final product of fabric that you can talk of standardization, the quality of what it is. So I want to say that they all link together. But the bottom line is that first we must encourage production, of these goods, and make sure that we add value to them, not in raw material form. The same thing with cocoa. I mean, it's a country with high potential to produce cocoa in large number. I think we are one of the leading producers of cocoa. But what value addition are we adding? In the 60s, 70s, cocoa production also encouraged the establishment of companies like Cadbury, food and beverages, so that we turn them to what we can consume and produce. And a good number of countries like Ethiopia has gone a long way in this respect. Rather than exporting raw coffee, they first of all promote production at home, and now they're also, exporting abroad. So I want to say here that critical issue in this discussion should be, how do we promote the value-adding activities, which is manufacturing. I think that's the key word, the manufacturing beneficiation. And I think for now, the manufacturing value added in Nigeria is still very, very low, less than 10%, which is quite sad because, again, in the 80s, manufacturing value added was close to about 25%. We are one of the fast developing manufacturing country in the world. So I'm happy about some of the initiatives now on automobile industry, that rather than importing full products, vehicles, we must assemble, we must produce. Don't forget Pujo at a point. The local content for Pujo in Kaduna was close to about 60%. We already do upholsteries, adding value, the tires. In fact, there was a time they were thinking of fabricating some of the engines, locally. But today we need to bring them back locally. So all those new automobile factories like Inosin, I know Nissan in Lagos, they are back to assembly now. Now, those are the value chain, and this is where the jobs could be created. Because if you import wholesale products, you're actually importing unemployment, exporting your own jobs. So in summary, that would be my submission to say that, well, value addition means first we must produce the product, and then before we move to standardization. And I've seen my colleague from Standardization will have to brief us more. Many of our products are good quality products. They pass through some of the tests. They are very competitive. Of course, there are rooms for improvement. And I think this is what all these agencies must do, so that in the light of African Continental Trade Agreement, our goods must be seen to be competitive, produced with relatively lower costs. Again, that comes to a lot of discussion we have to talk about. You can't do production without electricity, without electrification. Industrialization cannot move. You must also have sustainable industrial policy. And to some extent, you have to also take some bold decisions to deliberately encourage your industry. And this is why I like some of the restrictive policy of central bank in terms of financing products. The central bank has about these 43 items, that central bank believes, and I share that view, that we can produce locally. So now, if you can produce them locally, you don't make scarce foreign exchange available for those who want to import. Go and add value to produce locally. Produce textile, produce rice, produce tomato paste, rather than going to import them. So in summary, this my take on the essence of the need for value addition. If you don't produce first, you have nothing to standardize, not to talk of exporting. And I think this is what Dr. Ngozi Koji has come to drum to our heads, which I know is well received by the Federal Ministry of Trade and Investment.
Sustain the very narrow side of the value addition and value chain within and connecting with the external. But quickly, listening to Nina speak and listening to standards organizations speak, let us clear it openly. If we have quality goods and before now our goods are being rejected on grounds of not meeting standards in the global market, now we have Nina's. And Nina's is saying, with Nina's on ground, we don't need further evaluation when our goods get to the international market. So for clarity, Standards Organization of Nigeria, Nina's, where lies the separation?
Thank you for that question. Before I go to give the distinction, like my colleague Aremu have said, yes, we need to produce, and when we produce, quality will come in. And first, I will encourage Nigerians that nobody will sell you than you sell yourself. At a point, like he said, Nigerians become crazy about imported goods, such that even toothpicks, we endeavor to prefer to the ones that come from the overseas. Saying that, standards provides the minimum benchmark of the quality of a product. And an accreditation body looks at the standard and convince the consumer, convince the buyer convince the exporter that what is being certified using that standard is done rightly and it can be repeated anywhere in the world, even if it's done in Nigeria. Before now, because of the lack of accreditation in our environment, the international community feel that we, being the third world, cannot do things right. We have the standards, which are of international value, because most of the standards we have, because the world has become a global village, are just either an adoption of the global standard or adaptation to suit our environmental conditions. So when the standards are adapted or adopted, the national accreditation body will make sure that the labs that are testing in line with the best international practice that are recognized worldwide. And NINAS itself, being a member of that body, because it has attained a full membership of the accreditation community, once it gives a stamp of accreditation on a body certifying a product, the other party there, who is also a member, will see no need of repeating it again. So tested once, accepted worldwide, will become a policy.
Besides the fact that, still on you, besides the fact that we are building towards what Issa just conversed on, India, China, they have formed a block where no matter how you look at it within the value chains, they come beyond the shores of, for instance, China, beyond the shores of India as a block. Are you looking towards this direction in terms of when you're doing your standardization? Because you have talked about the fact that as much as we have issues with our exports, but Nigerians still send out some of the best products outside the country.
Products made from Nigeria are quite unique to ourselves, and they are products the world is looking for. Incidentally, particularly the commodity exchange type, like the produce, there are some that grows better here than anywhere else in the world. I'm happy when Dr. Ngozi, while I was talking about sasim. Incidentally, the sasim found in Nigeria and produced in Nigeria is one of the best. And sasim, apart from users in food, it is also used in the pharmaceutical industry. So if we do it right, producing the right sasim, grading it properly, most of the challenge we have is lack of non-proper grading. Most of the time we try to export products that are fully engaged with debris, a lot of sand. If we can start with the basic cleaning so that you ensure the customer oversees that you are giving him not sand, but the real sasim, he has confidence in your product, and that is the beginning of quality. And apart from that, the other products that are indigenous to us, that if you go to China or you go to India, they are not readily available. Let me use the normal word we use. God has blessed us with the environment that give us products that are unique to us. So if we produce them, give them the right grading and the right testing, and with NINAS accrediting the bodies that we certify, our products can compete with anybody. And also, apart from that, you can say, well, the cost of production in over there is low, but we can drive through that. It's just a matter of we encouraging our young. We have a large youthful population that we can use, which is what China and India are using, because they have a large population. So if we can go in and produce our infrastructure, not too high, to a reasonable extent, the cost of production of our produce will reduce drastically, and they'll be clean and in the class anywhere in the world they can be accepted.
Okay. Celestine, you've heard what Teso said. Now, let me just ask this very simple question. How do you interface with manufacturers who produce for export, whether agricultural produce, non-agricultural produce? Are they aware of what they are supposed to do and why you exist to assist them key into the global value chain?
Thank you, Omini. The fact is this, and I need to make this very, very clear. We are not supposed to have, when I say we, I mean accreditation system, are not supposed to have direct interface with manufacturers or producers, or in fact, the products themselves. This is a role of certification bodies and other agencies that carry out registrations. So if you're asking of direct interface, that will be talking to SON or NAFDAC or any other agency that have direct dealings with the product. Our role to the manufacturers is to be able to provide a clear direction to the manufacturers or producers on what kind of conformity assessment bodies they use in processing their products, whether it is for export or for our domestic use. For example, when you check our website, you will see all the accredited laboratories where manufacturers or producers or those processing agricultural produce for export or even for internal use, where they can go and do their testing and get what we call accredited laboratory result. So that's the kind of indirect interface we have. We are like shining light to them to know the right things to do, the right service providers to use, so that they don't have to repeat this process when their goods leave this country. When they want to do inspection, most of the goods that are exported will need to leave the country with different certificates: quality control certificate, certificate of safety, and inspection certificates. All those certificates that they leave this country with are supposed to have gone through or be provided by an accredited conformity assessment body. So our message or our interface with the manufacturers or even distributors or exporters is simple. Wherever you use conformity assessment bodies, check for an accredited one, so that you don't have to spend again another round of money when your goods arrive another country. So when you have a business or something, they need to test for you, whether it's agricultural product, whether it's the fully manufactured product. Use accredited laboratories. SON have accredited laboratories. NAFDAC have accredited laboratories. There are so many private labs on our website that are accredited. These labs that are accredited, when they issue your certificate, that certificate will be accepted anywhere, just like my colleague from SON said, tested once, accepted everywhere. So that's very important for manufacturers to know. And why we are concerned about the value chain, activation of value chain and strengthening them is because, very simple, like Dr. Remy have said here, if you add value to any product and you use the accredited conformity assessment procedures, what you are going to get, the profit margin immediately quadruples, like times 4 of what you would have gotten if you're selling the raw material. So, and the producers need to know this. It's not just producing. It's not just packaging for export. You have to do it in such a way that the international community will not question or second guess whether you did it right or wrong. And that's exactly what my colleague from SON said. If we can utilize the standards that SON are adopting or domesticating for us, and then our conformity assessment bodies apply or use the standards correctly as we can attest, then we have an accredited system that guarantees that whatsoever leaves our country can be accepted where it is going, and locally, because our life and our health is very important too, then our consumers at home will be rest assured that whatsoever you see in the market is fit for our consumption. Because what is good for the white men or brown men is good for all of us here as black men. So this is why it is important that the quality institutions work together. It's a network. That's why we call it a system. It shouldn't be segregated, and that's what we're trying to do with SON. We work hand in hand in developing the Nigerian quality policy. We worked day and night together for many, many years, and today we are celebrating that Mr. President graciously approved that policy. And if we can build on this by implementing that policy, that would be a very, very wonderful way for Nigeria to make progress. We're so thankful to the Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment because he drove this process with all his strength. He did not rest since he came in on, and got this policy passed, approved by the FEC. So we are making progress.
Well, at the beginning of the program, I told you we're taking a couple of reports, and also at some point our phone lines will be displayed on the screen. You can make your input through your call, and in doing this, turn down the volume of your television set. Also, our Twitter handle is on, and it is at Tuesday Live NTA. When we return, tested ones are created everywhere. Where is the place of Nigeria if we have created a value chain within the country? Can we penetrate the West African sub-region? And if we do, where can we make it beyond the West African sub-region? After this report, beginning with the report from Lagos.
Developed and developing economies thrive on the sustainability and value of standard products produced in line with best practices. Nigeria, as an emerging economy with a population growth of 3% and a GDP growth rate of 0.11% year-on-year in fourth quarter of 2020, is Africa's largest market for investment and business development. The huge opportunity created by the vast market space and commercial window for the promotion of standard products has facilitated the introduction of various policies and guidelines by the regulatory body Standards Organization of Nigeria to regulate the market of substandard products.
Even if such a product is even selling at a much higher price, because a standard product inspires a lot more confidence among the consumers. I think it is something that is very good for any business and for the entire economy. It's also something that brings a lot of value in terms of the perception of a country. For instance, if you are talking about exporting our products either to the sub-region under the umbrella of ECOWAS or to the continental market, the perception that it has is a function of the standard.
Against the erroneous claims that Nigeria's market in terms of standard products is not competing favorably with imported items, SON, through its stakeholders' engagements on compulsory adherence to standards, has changed the narrative.
Quality and excellence are not compromised at any point in time. For every product to go out of Nigeria, they must comply with the mandatory conformity assessment program that is being organized by Standardization Organization of Nigeria.
Experts submit that the huge financial benefits in the value chain can be sourced for private and national development if key players adhere to standardized products.
The next report coming from Jos connects with the fact that the economic development of a nation is measured by the standardization of goods and services of products, regardless of manufacturer or geographical location. This is the view of some key players on standardization of products and impact on the value chain.
The quality of goods and services produced and consumed reflects the quality of life of a country, and to uphold such qualities, Nigeria ensures that products have a mandatory approval of the NIS seal, which involves conformity assessments and laboratory analysis by regulating bodies like the Standards Organization of Nigeria. In pursuit of the best international practices, key players say standardization of products cannot be compromised.
Most times, consumers go to the market to buy things without SON logo. There has always been an evidence for us when we go to companies to see what they do. There has always been an evidence of correspondence.
The Standard Organization of Nigeria, the NAFDAC, to really regulate and certify most institutions that are into production of goods that need certification. And by doing that, you will be able to open these entrepreneurs to the market space and enable them to compete favorably with their global counterparts.
They say, just as every finished product is the beginning of another, there are different segments of a value chain, from distribution, manufacturing to marketing, which works towards ensuring that the finished products, right from the raw material stage to the final stage, can reach the consumer anywhere in the world.
Government, the private sector, every one of us come together to first support the local farmer.
Key players suggested the need for government to provide the enabling environment to standardize products.
And this report coming from Port Harcourt will be the last on this segment, before we take the next round of reports, but it tries to tailor us to the fact that with the ratification of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, Nigeria has braced up its standardization modules, especially in areas where it has comparative advantage. As a result, this is expected to ensure quality and acceptability of locally manufactured goods and services, among other factors. The report from Jos.
Nigeria's rich arable land and well-endowed natural resources, coupled with its vast market space and population, places her at a very strategic position to participate in local and international trade. To ensure that the country thrives in areas where it has comparative advantage, the Standards Organization of Nigeria, as an active member of the International Organization for Standardization, IOS, is not resting on its oars in ensuring that all products and services from the country meet required standards.
We are always on the move to ensure that the companies are doing it. And being that they know we visit, most of them are doing well. They are really bracing up.
Both from the local government level, from the state level, they should complement what the federal government is doing. We should look at standard as a critical part of the value chain when it comes to export.
Of great significance is a place of effective value chain across sectors, projected to have a multiplier effect of transforming Nigeria's economy and creating millions of jobs if given the needed priority attention.
Every business needs to begin to look beyond just doing business one-on-one. There has to be a drive to ensuring that businesses galvanize the IT in their operations. These are things that we have come to realize that the post-COVID era has brought to us, and businesses must latch onto this for survival.
Stakeholders commended Nigeria's fashion industry, which is growing in leaps and bounds across its vast value chain, and suggested similar posture in agriculture, processing and marketing.
That's a report from Port Harcourt. Before we go on break, let's begin from this area with Issa Aremu. Issa, actually, what we are trying to establish is there are various value chains within the Nigerian economy across board. Sugar, cotton, like you've mentioned, rice. Now, I mentioned India and China before we took the reports. They have structured their value chain in the matter that they come out in blocks into the international market. And I ask this question: if we have structured the rice value chain, cotton value chain, cocoa, all that, and beyond even the agricultural value chain and other areas, if we are not properly mainstreamed as a block, how do we control or network into the West African value chain before we even talk about the global value chain?
Well, I think it's not one or the other. You know, they all go together. But I think maybe we need to be a bit measured here and quite realistic. Yes, definitely the way to go is export, you know, so that we can hand foreign exchange and stop the bleeding, the pressure on our very limited foreign exchange, which is also affecting the value of the currency. I mean, I just listened to the CBN governor now. They've retained the numbers for obvious reasons. One of the pressures, one of the issues is that the continued depreciation of the naira, and as long as we remain import dependent, we're massively importing what we ought to produce. There's no doubt that we're going to have limited foreign exchange. So I think the way to go is export, and that we need to export goods that are standard. But I have to emphasize this point because our discussion is about value chain. First, you can't export what is not produced. And I think the basic point today, basic fact which Dr. Ngozi brought out is that we are underperforming. We need to add value to our products, even the raw materials. We need to also increase the production, and then later on we add value to them. I say this again, I keep on giving the example of cassava. We're spending close to about 235 billion naira, to import cassava byproducts, such as ethanol, sweeteners, and other basic byproducts of cassava that we use for industrial production. Precisely because we are not adding value to cassava, even though we are the largest producer of cassava in the world. The same thing with textile. It's quite good now that we are adding value now. Where we've increased production of cotton, but the entire value chain, we've not realized it in the true sense of the word, because until you gin the cotton, it's nice now with the intervention of CBN. There are off-takers that take the product from farmers, so there have some level of stability. You have Nakoton, the group, the organization organizing the farmers. I think you did a feature on that last week, on the cotton textile policy. We have it, but until the spinning, the mills, the weaving mills come on board, and I've not seen that. In fact, the largest textile mill, UNTL in Kaduna and Lagos, is virtually closed down up to now, for a number of reasons, So until we turn those products to goods, fabrics, I'm not sure whether Nigerian Standard Organization has much to standardize. That's the point I'm trying to raise here. But as good as export is significant, do also forget that these 200 million people, this is the market itself. First we need to have a product for our market to take advantage, because for now, the market share of locally produced goods is still very low. We have most of imported goods taking over our market for obvious reasons, because we're underproducing. Secondly, there are problems of smuggling, of dumping, as the case may be. So we need to address that holistically. So, Omini, I hope I get your name very well, my friend. I agree. We need to be a global player, and I think for now, the real game we even want to play is within the African Continental Trade Agreement, because 1.2 billion Africans have come together to sign on opening up our market, lowering the tariffs to allow for goods to come in, and I think Nigeria is better positioned to take advantage of that. We were the one who formed the ECOWAS, as far back as 1974. Because Nigeria had enough to produce and to export to West African sub-region. So in terms of bloc engagement, I think we have enough experience in that. But the challenge now is to encourage real value addition along the value chain in a way that we have products to actually export in a competitive manner. And I think after, it's also meant to compete with those blocks you mentioned. In China, in Asia as a whole. I think recently, even the entire Asia countries also form another block, which tells you that it's not individuals that we go it alone. All of us have to go it. So which means we now have to move as much as possible. And this West Standard Organization and all the accredited agencies, as we are doing our assessment locally, we must also think globally. Because yes, you are raising the standard to make sure we are competitive. We must also apply the same standard to goods coming in. Because under standardization, we can be undercut. They raise the standard, just to block your own export. But you must also know how to ensure that we have a standard that will make us to have, access to foreign market, as the case may be. Then the last quick one I want to raise, because we've been discussing about products. And don't forget, I'm a labor man. You gave my profile. I mean, I'm representing industrial workers worldwide, and I think that's also a lesson. You mentioned it, 50 million workers worldwide. But what you haven't said is that how many are from Nigeria? If it is based on number, possibly I wouldn't have been vice president of Industrial Global Union, because the largest industrial workers we have in Africa, they are from South Africa, because it's a manufacturing country where the value chain is well entrenched. You know, beneficiation of product. They produce cars. They produce a number of, I mean, even in textile, they are one of the leading textile producing nations. But the point I want to raise is that, and I think standard organization, including my friend here, who are doing the accreditation, you must also find that beyond standardizing product, you must also standardize the input of the workers who produce the product. This may not be your brief, but we need to work together, you know, to get it right. Why I'm saying this is that, wait, there was a time under Bill Clinton where the African Continental Trade, I mean, what they call AGOA, African Growth and Opportunity Act, which was meant to encourage exports of textile products, among other products, to United States. And I was the General Secretary at that time. Bill Clinton sent the Secretary of Labor, which is the Minister of Labor of US, to come and find out in our factories whether those goods are produced by workers who are well paid, who earn minimum wage. They are not slave workers. Yeah. If you know the trade war between China and the US, it's over about standard of labor, because Chinese have not bought into minimum labor standard. Now, I think it's also important for us to make sure that, yes, as we're excited about standardization of products, you must make sure products are produced by human beings who are well paid, you know, because nowadays, even within WTO, I listened to Dr. Ngozi Kojewala is talking of decent work. Yeah. It's not just any work, decent work. Product produced, you know, by free working people who are organized, who earn minimum wage, who are not slaves. Because that's the challenge we also have in our competition with China, with India. Some of the products are produced by child labor, you know, and that means the goods will be cheaper. You know, they undercut you in terms of competition by low poorly paid workers. Of course, they have energy, which is more or less free. So I think we need to broaden our horizon. So my quick suggestion would be that in this our drive to promote export for development, to promote value chains, I think all the relevant agencies have to come together. Business, labor, you know, the manufacturers, organized laborers, and then we put those standards as the way they should be. Because even Europe now, you can't take some goods there if they know they are not produced by free human beings. You know, it's also a way to discourage competition, you know, and have comparative advantage. Oneme, this is my take on this.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Okanya. Okanya, just like Issa will say, this is not directly within your brief, but you're within the value chain of standardization. The bottom line is what we are discussing ends up in trade. And as much as we talk about the underlying issues within the African Continental Free Trade Area, one of the reasons why Nigeria up till now has not signed the Economic Partnership Agreement is because the origin of it, Nigeria contemplates the fact that EPA is already in violation of the World Trade Organization Treaty. And if I quote the DG of WTO copiously in the summary of her visit to Nigeria, she said, underlined the role that trade can play in helping Nigeria's economy diversify and move from oil dependency towards a modernized and low-carbon economy. Tapping into external demand can help pull people out of low productivity activities and into more tradable goods and services, she said. Now, my question, let's take cashew, for example. Within the value chain in Nigeria, for now, we're looking at just exporting cashew beans. But when it gets to wherever it goes, they create almost like 7 value chains within the cashew value chain. We sent out cashew nut, but 10 products are come out of cashew nut itself. So imagine one value chain sending out one product and it returns back with 7 value chains. So in the place of competitiveness, where do we stand?
This is seriously packed. And let me make this point. I agree with my colleague here, in fact, representing labor and all the experiences. They are the one doing the dirty job. And you will agree with me that it's not easy to be an entrepreneur or try to raise a business yourself from ground. And your concern will be to produce and market. But the most important point I need to make in response to the emphasis that's laid on production is this. Yes, I agree, you have to produce first before you begin to talk about standardization. But if you look at the 7 countries who are ruling African market, with South Africa, Egypt, and Kenya topping the list, the only thing they are doing better than us is their quality of products. The only reason why Egypt can penetrate European market and sell as if they are Europeans is because of the conformity assessment procedures they have in Egypt. So yes, I will support production, but I think it's fundamental that if our economy must improve, if our economy is to improve, in fact, if the economy of our entrepreneurs, MSMEs, and manufacturing companies, if the economy should get better, it can only get better by adopting the principles that drives the market, and that's quality. Quality is a culture, quality is a lifestyle, and when it takes root, you will see that the products, no matter where you produce them, people will look for it. We have to, as a country, embrace quality system. And this is why I'm so happy about the position of the government about the quality system now. I think there's a clear understanding that we have to trade. That's number one. But for us to trade, your product has to be competitive in the market. What makes you competitive? The quality of your product. And if we can do that, then we are ready to trade. Now, if you come to the Continental Free Trade Agreement, which we have signed, and in fact, trading have started since January to some extent. The Annex 6, in fact, from Annex 5, 6, and 7 of that agreement was a kind of dedicated to conformity assessment, standardization, and every other thing that has to do with quality. And the one that is frightening is that the Annex 6 specifically says that the principles under which we can mutually accept each other's products or product certificates or quality certificates is based on mutual recognition arrangement that is only gotten from the conformity assessment system, accredited conformity assessment system. Now, in the 54 countries of Africa, as far as accreditation is concerned, we have only 7 countries that have achieved the MRA, which is mutual recognition arrangement, that they have written into our agreement as the only tool that we use to accept each other's certificate. In fact, Nigeria needs to work very hard. If NINAs don't achieve the mutual recognition arrangement as soon as possible, we may have the goods, we may have the number, we may have the quantities, but we can be ruled out on technical grounds. This is a game. Trade is a game. If you lose out on technical grounds, you blame nobody. And so what message am I sending now? The message I'm sending is this. We as a nation, we have all it takes to rule African market. So when Aremu said we can look inwards, focus on regional opportunities also, before even thinking of international. That's very correct. But to maximize our profit, our benefit, and opportunities in Africa, we need to opt our quality system. And to do that, we need to achieve MRA in different areas. Our standard body has grown. It should be one of the best, if not the best, in Africa. But we have to have a conformity assessment system that also matches the level of standardization that we are doing. And that's a very important thing we need to do. So, are we ready to trade? Yes, I think we're ready to trade because we've signed the agreement. Are we technically ready? There's a lot of work to do, sir. We really need to be ready technically to do that. And I'm sure my colleague from SON will be willing to weigh in more on this, so that we don't pretend about this. We need our people to have value for their money when they make effort to produce or provide services. Again, talking about the labor, because you represent labor. Now there is transferability of workers within the continent, since we are becoming a single market. What can we do to see that we use our dominating number of population in this country to enhance the opportunities for our large workforce? What can we do to have Nigerians working with their portfolios in South Africa, take up a job, work in Kenya, Ethiopia, every part of Africa? We can do that if we begin to provide, still within the realms of our certification system, personnel certification, which allows their certificate and their skill to be transferable. So that when they're in South Africa, they don't ask them, oh, this your degree, where is it from, or what is it used for? You see, that system, that's so standard for skills, for international welders, deep sea welders, for builders, architects. That's a lot that has been standardized, and the Continental Free Trade recognizes those standards as what we use to exchange services and products. So there's a lot of work to do, and I'm happy as a nation we're embracing these quality systems now, but there's a lot of work to do, sir.
When we return after the break, our phone lines, our tweets will be taken, and other aspects of the conversation will be also considered tonight. Stay with us.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices, as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus. The vaccine offers hope for a safe country free of coronavirus. I urge all state governments, traditional and religious leaders to take the lead in the mobilization effort within their environment and spheres of influence. I similarly urge all eligible Nigerians to present themselves and be vaccinated in accordance with the order of priority already mapped out at the various authorized designated centers only.
Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned. Let's begin with TESO. We heard so much about mandatory conformity program of SON. What is it all about?
Thank you very much again. Standards Organization of Nigeria, apart from being the apex body for standardization, is also involved in conformity assessment. And one of their conformity assessment is to ensure that products produced locally meet the standards that are relevant for it. And like I said at the beginning, the world has become a global village. And with that, our standards are no longer local standards, but they are international standards adapted for environment. So having the challenge of take-up of standards, the federal government in 2005, in an attempt to make sure that both the goods that are imported and manufactured locally, we now made an effort to ensure that we introduce a conformity assessment program for imported goods, which we call Standard Organization Conformity Assessment Program, SONCAP, which is to ensure that goods coming into Nigeria meet the Nigerian standards and any other relevant standards in the world. And in doing that, the WTO insisted that there must not be bias in the conformity assessment system. So we also came up with the same conformity assessment for the local produce, which we codenamed Mandatory Conformity Assessment Program, MANCAP. So MANCAP is a reverse for Nigerian produced goods in line with the one coming in, so that we can assess that all goods in the Nigerian markets meet international standards.
Before I take the next line of question, let's take this first caller tonight. Sunday is calling in from Delta State. Hello, Sunday.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Hello.
Good evening. Go ahead.
Okay. The topic is well-designed and well-packaged for our textile industry. What I want the federal government to do, they should encourage them and try to create a very large market domestically and internationally so that the textile industry can thrive. By so doing, this will also encourage domestic employment. But one thing, if we want to really achieve this, the federal government must look inward and, of course, give us an adequate pricing of fuel so that it can galvanize the food economy. Without adequate pricing for fuel, I don't think this country will move forward. And if the federal government increase fuel, it's not supposed to affect other goods and services. But in our own case in Nigeria, once the federal government increase fuel, it doesn't affect other goods and services. Why? So they have to invite more experts in this area so that we can achieve instant development. But, well, we don't really know how to get ourselves to the forefront of Nigerian economy. What I mean is to discuss with some professionals, maybe government teams, so that we can get Nigeria moving. Because why Nigeria is not moving? The fuel price is not adequate, it's inadequate. We cannot employ all Nigeria at the same time, employ all our businesses. But this federal government can really look inward and give us appropriate pricing that will not affect other goods and services and create jobs more than the said population. At least we'll get there. But if this knowledge is not with the federal government, I can help them. This is my contact. You know, like I developed a proposal, and this proposal set American economy, you know. But I also sent same proposal to Nigerian government, previous government, Jonathan, Obasanjo, blessed memory, Yaradua, but they did not respond. This is one of the problems, challenges with it.
Thank you so much. At this point, that's the much we can take from Sunday. He has made some contributions there. Before I parry a question to Issa, despite the mandatory conformity program by Son, how come we still have people who cut corners and when they get to international space, Nigeria is embarrassed?
Well,
what are the sanctions available so that people don't take pride in doing this?
The sanction available is, first, the major sanction is when you take your products across the border, they are seized and destroyed. But the internal measure should be that before you export, which is where most of us Nigerians into the exporting community make errors. Just because I have seen ISA export and be successful, it doesn't mean that you should just jump and go into the export. Before you export, you should find the country where you are going with. What is their policy? How do they want their goods packaged? Because possibly sometimes even where as the goods are packaged here, might not be the way they want it. So first and foremost, to make it difficult, in as much as we have a conformity assessment, we should look at our borders. Our borders are very porous. It will surprise you when you go to certain borders, you can walk easily through. And the infrastructures at our ports should enhance the customs so that things are checked properly to be in line with the conformity assessment program before they are exported. That way, it will reduce the menace of seizure and rejection of our goods overseas.
Okay, let's go to Issa. Issa, a tweet is here, and I want to allow you to react to the tweet. It's coming from Toro Williams 73. It says, "We are not in the global value chain. In 1980, Nigeria was a net exporter of petroleum. We manufacture our cars in Kaduna, Bauchi, Anambra, glasses similarly in Kaduna, tanned leather and textiles. But today, Nigeria depends on importations of toothpick and the list."
I think it's self-explaining, but I don't think, I think it's fine. We need those statistics to talk to ourselves. But as somebody said, many people have interpreted our reality, but it's not time for us to change the reality. In the opening background tape you showed, I also pointed out that the DG of WTO, Dr. Ngozi, brought the point home, and he's a Nigerian, so we can't deny that fact that our share of global trade is just 0.33%. In fact, what she's saying is that we are not a trading nation, as the case may be. He also went further to say that we just have 19% of the trade in the continent of Africa. At least that's the current reality. But you also know, and as the tweet also indicated, there was once in Nigeria in which the numbers were far more robust than that. Our share of African trade was certainly far more than that in the past, because we were producing not only for domestic market, but also for the export. So I think the challenge now is, how do we turn this reality of underperformance to full performance? And I think that's why we're here. And I think the beauty of the discussion is that trade and the need for export could ginger us to revive domestic production, and not only to produce, but to produce quality products, which will meet international standard. But also, maybe we need holistic statistics. I was just sharing this with my friend here. Take cement production, for instance, today. Nigeria has moved from wholesale importation, and I think the fellow who sent that tweet must recognize this point. We have now moved to food sufficiency in cement production and also to export. We virtually dominate the African cement production, which means we have product that is competitive, that's made the standard. I think what is good for cement is good for textile. It's good for cassava value chain, it's good for rice value chain, it's good for automobile. I mean, I'm happy that he pointed to automobile. I mean, that's a sad commentary on our reality. There was a time we had a truck manufacturing factory in Kano. We had Pujo, we have Volkswagen, we had Anamco, Enugu, we had there. But the underlying factors were also there. I mean, that was a period we had relatively, steady supply of energy to the industry. We had appropriate industrial policy. We also had development plan, and I think that's even the point I've been trying to look forward to. You can't drive trade or export if we don't have sustainable development plan. And I'm happy now that the Ministry of Planning is now talking of the need to return back to planning. We've been pursuing growth before, which is okay. I mean, we had this economic growth plan, which has expired 2018. One of the components is that by now we should have 70% local refining capacity, but it hasn't materialized. I think now we have development plan, and that's what helped Nigeria in the 60s, 70s. We had the target to say, in all sectors, we produce manufacture, not only for domestic market, but for export. I mean, I even know textile in those days. The entire West African sub-region, our industry used to occupy the market, because we produce locally. In fact, there are some of our factories that have branches in Ghana, in Cote d'Ivoire, So it's what we've done before, and it's what we must do before. So it's not that we are not we're already part of the global value chain. In any case, if you are not part of it, the global value chain will be part of it somehow through wholesale import, which is now what we are looking for. We need to reverse the terms of trade to the benefit of Nigeria. And that now requires sitting down. And I think my last point on this is that we need all the stakeholders. I think we need to improve more knowledge of this trade, knowledge about standardization. All stakeholders must come together. And I think from what I've also raised here, that standard goes beyond just product. It's about skills, standard of productivity, standard of the workers that produce. Labor rights have to be incorporated even to trade, because the idea of trade is not an end in itself, it's a means to an end. It's a means to drive development, to take us out of poverty, to create jobs. Because you can produce goods that are not creating jobs. I mean, that will not be, we return back to jobless growth. But I think we need goods that will make sure that the entire value chain will have benefit, we create jobs for this teeming number of youths in Nigeria that are looking for jobs. And I think Dr. Ngozi keep on, I was so excited that he's linking that to the youth employment. And the best way is to create sustainable jobs is through this value chain process which we are discussing.
Thank you so much, Issa. Before I take the next tweet, let's take this caller from Makodi. Ene. Hello, Ene.
Hello.
Good evening.
Kenneth.
Kene.
Makodi.
Sorry, Kene.
Yes, Kene.
Please go ahead, Kene. Can you turn down the volume of the television set, please?
Yes, my name is Kene. It's Kene.
Go ahead, please. Can you turn down the volume of the television set, please?
My volume is down completely.
Okay, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yes, my name is Kene. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, my greetings to my brother Onguduem in the studio there. I want to put it here clear that you see the problem we have in Nigeria is about looking inward, trying to make everything works for us. If we can look at it very well, you trace the history of this country, in the way of industries, we've been doing well for the past years. As a young man, while growing up then, I discovered that I never even dreamed of myself even doing anything, but I think given into the policies of government. But as we speak today, I want to tell you here clear that the system is no more functional the way we expect. Every day we wake up, we talk about unemployment, we don't have jobs, and this and that. But if we tried as a people, as a nation, that are known for in Africa, and in the world in general. We are wonderful people. And then if we can look inward, just the way I said it earlier, federal government and everyone who is concerned, putting our heads together, trying to go back to the drawing, the drawing board, see what is supposed to do. What are we missing? What link are we missing? Where are we missing? So that we can come back on the same line and try to make almost everything works in this country. I want to put it here clear to you that we have everything that it takes for us to be there. But the system is not there. But why are we can't even sit and then condemn the system. We must put our heads together. I want to tell you. The program you're doing on TV today, it's a wonderful one. Somebody can see and drive a point home, like listening to you here. I can contribute if I know that, yes, the government knows that, yes, I have something to offer. Let the government bring me on board. Let us put our heads together. You people, raise a lot of good points there. I've been listening. But the problem is finishing this, trying to bring the people who are there, the people to the task in making the system work. So I want to appeal to the federal government of this country and everyone who is concerned. Let us try as a people, make almost everything works. Let us regain the lost glory of this country back on track.
Thank you very much, Kene.
My regards to my brother there again.
Thank you, Kene.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kene. I think Kene is trying tactically tied to what Issa talked about, development planning. Well, before we go to Celestine, just so there's a tweet here from Vanton Non. It says, for Nigeria to play competitively on the global stage, standardization should be on the front burner across all sectors of the economy, not just agriculture. More so, as one of the panelists has said, we have to manufacture, process, and government has to be more intentional about it. Exactly, we need to be technically ready. Technology advancement, also comparative indices.
Thank you very much. What he said is valid. Standardization is about technological change and advancement. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, even those of us in the learned cycle believe that the standard belongs just to the standard body. Incidentally, I always disabuse people's mind. The standards belong to the people of Nigeria, and the standards are only facilitated by the Nigerian people in the different sectors. So like the tweet person said, if you notice a disadvantage in a product or in a service, you are at liberty to point out to the SON, who is a facilitator of standards, this product or this service, to my own consideration, is below the word norm. Can we bring it up par? And yes, once you back it with scientific proofs that what you are asking is right, we'll not even stop there. We ask those in the same market with you or those in the same field with you. Mr. A has shared this view with us. Do you agree with him? And then we sit everybody on the table. And unfortunately, when we invite people to standardization activities, despite our down economy, people expect that we should pay them for it. Elsewhere in the world, people pay to participate in standardization activity because it's a place where you share knowledge with the big, the small, because the big will want to make sure that the products they are producing or the services they are producing are the ones that their standard are being used. So when you come as a small player, you know their game and know where they want to go, and then you insist that it should come to a level where you participate. And once again, I want to emphasize that standards are a minimum. A national standard or a national standard cannot be more than a private standard. Standards are not to discourage innovation. Standards are rather to encourage innovation. But the stakeholders are the owner of the standards, and they should come to participate in making the standards. And from time to time, make sure they are reviewed to reach the international best practice.
Okay. Listening to the reports across the country, but before then, let's take this caller from Delta State, Bolade. Hello, Bolade.
Hello, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Please, can you turn down the volume of the television set?
Okay. Actually, very far away from my television set.
Okay.
Yeah, hello, sir.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Please, Bola, can you turn down the volume of your television set?
Okay.
We can hear you from here. Are you okay now?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Turn it down now.
Go ahead.
All right. So please, I seriously want to appreciate this program. But the contribution I want to make is that very well there have been several programs like this that have come on air, and brilliant contributors in the nation have come, to the stage to make contribution. I mean, come with brilliant ideas, in public view. And those who are in government, who are the policy makers, they hear these things, but little or nothing seems to be done. And one cannot but begin to wonder, is it that those who are the agencies of government who are connected with this kind of platform do nothing with the resources that is brought to the table by resourceful persons that we have in the country? I mean, Nigeria is so blessed with intellectuals.
Thank you, Bola.
We cannot.
Thank you, Bola.
So please, in conclusion, what I want to say is, please, let us do something with all the resources that we bring to the table in programs like this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bola. Celestine, before we took the caller, was to come to you. Listening to the reports across the country, and we still have about 2 more before we conclude the program tonight. I never heard people talk about NINAs. We heard so much about SON, NAFDAC. What really does NINA need to be heard so that people get to know that you are available to facilitate trade and make things a lot easier for export and even the value chain and standardization in Nigeria? It appears people don't get to know about NINAs in Nigeria.
Yes, Omini, thank you for that. Yes, you're very right. Not many people across the country know much about Nigerian National Accreditation System. Our country have made some level of progress recently. Since our independence, we did not have an accreditation system. So the fact that we have an accreditation body today is a step in the right direction. The fact that we have first national quality policy approved is a step in the right direction. So I want to be one of those Nigerians, if we are very few, that agree that we're making progress in at least fundamental areas. Now, NINAS is less than 3 years effectively, and you know what it takes to build a brand new system or institution or an agency. It takes a lot to get started and then be known. Within our short time in existence, we have done quite well to connect Nigeria to the international system of accreditation. We have done well to achieve some of the milestones required of any national accreditation body to ensure that our trade barriers is not based on technical grounds. What is left, because we cannot celebrate that we have arrived. We still have a few milestones to achieve, but what is left are very little, and the fact that we have an approved quality policy today means that we are on the way for Nigerians to know that NINAS has come, and NINAS has a role to play in growing our economy, removing barriers to our international trade, and in fact, creating jobs, because that's the focus. That's the focus. If we can grow our industry, you cannot grow industry without creating jobs. So the more our industries grow, the more jobs we can create. It will require a lot of resources to make every part of our society know NINAS, and we're doing that. By the way, accreditation is a very silent, systematic input into our economy. We're not supposed to really be on the face of people, on face of manufacturers and all that. But we should be at the back door actually improving or working with the real actors that are charged with responsibility of registering product or certifying product, setting standards, inspecting products or consignments or installations. We have to be at the background ensuring that they are doing the right thing. That's what accreditation is. We really don't have to be anywhere pursuing people around. But I agree with you, we're not that popular. We'll do as much as we can to be in the news. But the greatest news I want us to be is for manufacturers and producers, exporters and distributors to know that when you need a conformity assessment, whether it is laboratory, whether it is a certification or inspection, ensure that that service provider is accredited. We will be hoping that implementing a national quality policy will increase or provide NINAS opportunity to receive direct funding from the federal government of Nigeria. And with the funding, with proper funding, we can do more. With proper funding, our structure can grow and our delivery to the economy will become bigger. So right now, we are historically probably the only institution that plays a very strong role in the economy of this country without a dime yet from the federal government of this nation. But again, the founding and the starting of this project, the driving, the technical and policy foundation of this project was facilitated by the federal government, working with the United Nations and the European Union. So I'm not saying that we have everything we need, but there are more that we need to do, especially in finance, that we need more to be able to serve Nigeria better. And I think Mr. President has taken the first step of doing that by approving the quality policy that defines clearly the role of NINAS in our economy, role of NINAS in growing our economy. So Nigerians should watch out. We'll be more on the news. We'll be more on serving this country stronger and stronger. And I am one of those who believe that Nigeria can be better and will be better.
Thank you, Celestine. Let's take this caller from Anambra, Victor. Hello, Victor.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, Victor. Go ahead, please.
I'm very happy to be a part of this project.
Go ahead, Victor.
To be honest, Nigeria is the giant of Africa, and we are doing very well as a country. For example, most of the foreign products, like Chinese products, is being manufactured here in Nigeria by our fellow Nigerians, working under the management of the Chinese provisions. I think we can talk about standardization in Nigeria as regarding our productivity sector. We should first of all work as a nation to create standard life for Nigerians.
Thank you very much, Victor. We lost that caller there. And before we take our concluding thoughts on the program, let's take the remaining reports. And beginning with the one from Lafia, Nasarawa State.
Solid Minerals Endowment, Nasarawa State has agriculture as the mainstay of its economy, with the production of varieties of cash crops throughout the year. Prominent among crops produced in the state are cassava, with more than 332 metric tons per annum, rice, yam, and sesame seed. With about 80% of its population engaged in the agricultural value chain, the issue of uniformity and grading to meet foreign market standards is still a challenge. One major challenge of rice and cassava farmers in the state is lack of enlightenment and modern facilities for the standardization of the crops for export.
The way out is for us to upgrade the complete value chain of the crops. That one, we are producing these crops we are processing them immediately and adding value to them so that one, they can store better, and two, we can get premium value on each of them.
Export a crop, there is need for you to process to meet standard quality for export. And those are the kind of things that we teach our farmers.
The call to farmers is to take advantage of the available research, science and technology to boost crop production in the state, while experts sustain advocacy for the establishment of commodity board to shoulder issues of not only standardization but price control.
Our last report tonight is coming from Ibadan.
Exports are key to promoting sustainable and inclusive growth, creating decent jobs and fighting poverty in Nigeria and the world over. With the various benefits of exports against the over-reliance on imports, Nigeria is endowed with potentials and resources worthy of the international markets. In attracting the foreign market's value, however, the products must meet up international standard to boost foreign currency earnings and improve balance of payments, amongst others.
It's the market that determines how we package it. For instance, I have some people that whenever they are going to Canada, they buy from us. Even they call me ahead of time.
Agriculture is the in thing when we talk about diversification. We need to improve the competitiveness of these farmers so that they can be able to sell or export their products in a manner and in a way that they will be able to make return on their investments.
When we look at the resources Nigeria has, we inform the people, we create awareness, we sensitize them to go into using those products. They have to develop it, product development.
With lots of benefits that the Nigerian economy is poised to gain from the investment and trade opportunities of the African Continental Free Trade Area, as well as the World Trade Organization. Improved quality and productivity will make the Nigerian market continuously attractive to the foreign markets.
And the report from Ibadan concludes reports tonight on this episode of the program. Let's go to Issa Aremo. As much as there are underlying issues regarding the takeoff of trade at the African Continental Free Trade Area, and indeed, we hope and believe very soon that the Nigerian government would maybe look to signing the Economic Partnership Agreement mooted from Europe if it is seen to have conformed with the World Trade Organization treaty. But the concern here is if value chain is what is like globalization today, what are we going to do to catch up? Mostly with the fact that the Africa Continental Free Trade Zone has taken off. Nigeria is a key player. But the underlying issues is what currency? What are the checks? We have a lot to churn in there to export: cotton, cashew, rice, and a host of other produce coming from Africa and the West African sub-region. So how fast can we catch up?
Well, I think first on the economic partnership agreement, with EU, I think we need to be cautious of that. Even Dr. Ngozi had also cautioned us that we need to be wary of additional bilateral agreements, that will overload and crowd the agenda. And of course, I want to commend the federal government and also Ministry of Trade and Investment for the way that we have, cautiously refused to lash into the partnership agreement with EU. Of course, UK now is even out of EU because that agreement was actually meant to undermine our collective resolve for regional integration. The devil's in the details, and we may not be able to have time to discuss that now. But the focus now is that 1.2 billion Africans, we have signed on Africa Continental Trade Agreement. Don't also forget that for very good reasons, Nigeria did not come on board on time, but we need to scrutinize that treaty very well because there are a lot of clauses that we need to do proper check, so that we can maximize advantage. I mean, don't also forget within Africa, we also know that everybody knows its own territory. I mean, South Africa is our competitor. Of course, Egypt is one, I mean, these are the leading three economies, Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt. They've been active in this discussion much more earlier. And of course, Rwanda, we shouldn't ignore it. Yeah. Kigali used to be the, champion of this. Even in terms of movement of services, human beings, they've moved far. So what I'm saying is that I think it's important that we get focus on the African Continental Trade Agreement. We shouldn't cry, and I don't think we want to lash into another partnership agreement for now. But the quick point I want to raise, before we wrap up is that I think we should also let the callers know that, yes, we have not yet there, but some progress has been made. I mean, in trade union, we talk of organizing, not agonize. Now we are talking of 95 processing standard mills for rice. This has not been the case before. So we're already adding value to rice. I also gave the example of cotton, from insufficiency, now we have enough. The challenge is to make sure that we improve the value chain to along the line for spinning, for weaving, and of course for final production of fabrics. So what I want to say is I think we should continue this work, and I think this comes to the last point I want to raise, that it is clear that government has business in business. Government has to facilitate value production, and you can see that within the last 3 years with creative policy under this government, initiated also by Central Bank of Nigeria, under Emefiele, and complementary efforts also by the Fiscal Authority. We have moved from importation of some product now to some production at home, and to the point that we are capable of exporting them. I think we should apply this along the value chain, but we must have a country to get this done, and I think I want to also use the medium to tell our governors that the industries are in the states. They are not even in Abuja. They too must get buy-in, to encourage value production. And I think if you take rice production, it's because you have Kebbi government together with Sokoto, who have partnered together with Lagos. They are now padding rice. And this is the way to go, so that Governors Forum become development forum, as the case may be. Of course, we must guarantee security. I mean, even this progress we have made in the cotton production is to the extent that farmers can mobilize. But where the forests or the farms have been taken over by whatever you call them, bandits or criminals, production can take place. But we also need to get that production so that we even liberate these youths, get these youths out of the bush, crime industry, to return to production industry, to add value. Because at the end of the day, the underlying current driving insecurity is lack of jobs, lack of opportunity. People are marginalized. I think we should bring them back to the mainstream of production. So it's a win-win thing for national development. So I want to say that trade is important. Africa should not live, Nigeria certainly should not live on aid. We need trade. We have capacity to produce, and I think it can only get better. And WTO, DG also said it's available to improve capacity building, on trade facilitation, or now we can, because these are all technical issues, as the case may be. I mean, I've learned also today from Celeste, I never knew you have this certification, third-party certification agency. I never knew that. I used to know of Standardization, as the case. So all stakeholders would come together to know that we should have an eye on ball. How can Nigeria move from importation to production to export? And then create jobs for our teaming youths, and have foreign exchange for national development. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I sign the two of you off, Celestine, clearly we are in for trade, like Issa Aremu has said, and there's no going back about it. And if we are in a global world where we're talking about multilateralism today, where would we be if all things are properly fixed and we get going the next 2 years?
I mean, the next 2 years will be too short, but I can suggest what will happen. First, it is important that we note that the only reason why other countries, developed nations, are afraid of China is not because of their war equipments or their technology in battlefield. No, it is in their ability to trade. It is in their ability to take over different nations with their trade and services. So the global war, the global power now is no longer about the military might you have, it's about trade. How much can you trade? And I think the government has realized that, and things are being done to facilitate trade. There are a lot of incentives, like Dr. Harimu has said here, from CBN, from the National Secretariat of the Continental Free Trade Agreement. There's a lot coming from different segments of economy. In fact, I know that they're also trying to work out a process where there will be incentive fund for Nigerian producers or manufacturers to access conformity assessment. And that I mean providing some financial incentive for them to improve their quality, go through certification, and all that they need to do to comply with the requirements of the market. If we do all this, most importantly, implement just approved quality policy, I think in the next 2 years, we can be sure that we are the biggest or one of the biggest players, at least within our continental free trade, the African single market. And that will also reposition us and probably up our number from the 90% that we are doing now in Africa to probably something 25, 30 or more. I am not a trade expert, but I can see the trajectory if we do the right thing, particularly on the international trade. All we need to dominate the market internationally with those products they don't have in Europe, America, and Asia is simple. It's up to quality. Meet the standards and have a verifiable conformity assessment procedures. Then they have no choice than to buy from us. So I think I'm hopeful, and I think between our next 2 years we should be better than what we are now. I know most people are saying we are going down, we're going down. I think it's time to go up, and that's my hope.
Thank you so much. At this point, let me quickly thank you, Celestine Okanya, Director General, Nigerian National Accreditation Service, NINAS. Thanks for being on the program tonight. Of making your time to be on the program tonight. Okay, I'm back here. Tesu, your conclusion. We look forward to a day I'll walk up to a shop and within my app, myself, I can detect which product is standardized or not. In conclusion.
Thank you. Nigerians are not substandard human beings, and I will encourage them not to be substandard human beings. We are the proudest persons on the earth's surface. Standard Organization is doing everything to ensure that not just them do the conformity assessment. The consumers should go into the shop, and presently we have an app being developed called SOMPAM. Right away, if you have an Android phone, you can download it, and once we go live, you can go into a shop and be sure that you will scan the product and it will tell you the product is certified or not. If it's not certified, you quietly put it down, and it will notify us using the GPRS that a bad product is here. And the person that is distributing it, because he's not selling, subsequently he will not patronize that service, and we will be better off for it. Once again, Nigerians, you are not substandard human beings. Make yourself quality people, and let's go ahead.
Tesu, it was nice having you on the program tonight.
Thank you.
And at this point, that concludes Tuesday Live tonight. We looked at value chain and product standardization. Thank you so much for your calls, and thank you for your tweets. On behalf of all of us Always remember to support the NTA in the campaign against rape and rapists. Bye-bye.